Number one Ibble Dibble here. Hello, friends. It's been a couple days and I'm so happy to be speaking to you. Oh my gosh, I tried to get through episode 3 so many times. This episode put me asleep like no other. I did watch the rest of the series to see what themes I could pull out, what patterns I perceived, and honestly, you don't need Xanax, you need this series. So I will get further into it, but today, as a little pick-me-up, given that most people have endured the entirety of it, I thought it would be fun to play a little game, the Narcissist test. In my research, I've come across an article written by Marlies Fjellstad, a licensed marriage and family therapist with a PhD in psychology who specializes in clients with narcissistic parents or partners. She's been in practice for 30 years and written 3 books on the subject. The first is Stop Caretaking the Borderline or Narcissist, How to End the Drama and Get On with Life. The second is Healing from a Narcissistic Relationship, A Caretaker's Guide to Recovery, Empowerment, and Transformation. And the third is Raising Resilient Children with a Borderline or Narcissistic Parent. And in this article, 15 Signs You're Dealing with a Narcissist from a Therapist, she tells us the cardinal traits are superior and entitled, attention-seeking, perfectionist, controlling, irresponsible, lack of boundaries, lack of empathy, everything is a threat, emotional reasoning, split personalities, fear of rejection, constant anxiety, harbor shame, unable to be vulnerable, unable to communicate. So I thought it would be fun to go through each of these 15 signs and share the example that annoys us the most about Harry and Meghan. I'm going to try to use all examples I found in episode 3 as a review of sorts. You tell me yours from any episode or just their bad behavior in general in the comments. Now bear in mind, a person need only exhibit 55% of these characteristics to be diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder, but I believe Meghan and Harry, the best royals ever born, will, as in everything they do, give us 110%, 210%. Sign number 1, superiority and entitlement. Superiority is the number 1 sign of a narcissist. It's different from self-confidence alone. The world of the narcissist is all about good versus bad, superior versus inferior, and right versus wrong. There is a definite hierarchy with the narcissist at the top, which is the only place they feel safe. Narcissists have to be the best, the most right, and the most competent. Do everything their way, own everything, and control everyone. Interestingly enough, narcissists can also get that superior feeling by being the worst, the most wrong, or the most ill, upset, or injured. Then they feel entitled to receive soothing concern and recompense, and even the right to hurt you or demand apologies to quote-unquote make things even. This is called vulnerable or covert narcissism. Being the dominant personality trait of narcissists, there are a multitude of egregious examples in episode 3 and prior episodes and the upcoming episodes, I'm sure. But the one that really stuck out at me in this episode was Harry talking about not being a normal person.
Working and living with normal people, and I fully appreciate that my life is not normal, certainly has an effect on you, right?
Harry, I think you insufficiently appreciate how very normal your life has become. In the UK, you are, in theory, a symbol of heritage and continuity. In the US, not so much. You're not the richest, most famous man in America. You're not even the richest, most famous man in your neighborhood. You're not the only European prince or princess in America. Forget all the international royalty that lives there. People don't like your wife. At this point, you're just a really unpopular rich guy. But forgetting where you like to hang your hat, life is long and the world changes fast. Your own grandfather was born into a monarchy that ceased to exist in his lifetime. Check out the disdain when he says normal people.
Normal people. Normal people.
Reminds me a lot of
a black woman, a black woman.
Harry, I'll remind you that Grand Duchess Olga died in a cheap apartment in East Toronto with roommates. Don't let your sense of pride or your ridiculous wife stop you from trying to rebuild important bridges. Sign 2. Exaggerated need for attention and validation. Another core narcissist trait is the constant need for attention, even just by following you around the house, asking you to do things, or constantly saying something to grab your attention. Validation for a narcissist counts only if it comes from others. Even then, it doesn't count for much. A narcissist's need for validation is like a funnel. You pour in positive, supportive words, and they just flow out the other end and are gone. No matter how much you tell narcissists you love them, admire them, or approve of them, they never feel it's enough, because deep down they don't believe anyone can love them. Despite all their self-absorbed, grandiose bragging, narcissists are actually very insecure and fearful of not measuring up. They constantly try to elicit praise and approval from others to shore up their fragile egos, but no matter how much they're given, they always want more. Again, so many scenes that fit this mold. Let me know your favorite in the comments below. My favorite from episode 3 was the Nottingham walkabout, where Meghan claimed she didn't know what a walkabout was.
I never saw pictures or videos of a walkabout. It's like, what's a walkabout?
First of all, liar. Second, as if it's not a straightforward compound word, walk about. You walk about in a rough circle, shaking hands. That's it. That's all you have to do. Shake hands, say hello. Take bouquet, hand to aid, keep walking. Yet they made it seem like this was the triumph of the century.
Why are you here?
Just to see Meghan. That's it.
This is the moment which will be played around the world.
What a day for Meghan Markle.
There was no doubt who sparkled the most today.
I thought to myself, like, what a dream. I found a woman that not necessarily finds this easy, but is able to do it and make it look easy.
No, Harry, it is easy. It's easier than mingling at a cocktail party because you're not even expected to say anything witty or interesting. They outrageously claim that the one element Harry couldn't prepare Meghan for was the style element. What should she wear?
Should I wear these earrings? Are these a British designer? I just ordered these online. Is this good? And can you wait? My tag's still on it. Cut the tag. Oh wait,
And then the zip breaks, and it's like,
and it's like, okay, do we have safety pin? Sure, safety pin it.
I mean, the whole thing was just ridiculous.
Okay, Laurel and Hardy. I'm going to give you some advice that I'm sure multiple people in the palace already gave you. Number 1, whenever you have any kind of engagement and don't know what to wear, Google Princess Anne plus name of town or event. Whatever she's wearing, order the closest thing you can. Number 2, wake up an hour earlier than you normally do. That's it. Do they wake and bake? Is that the problem? But don't worry, of course Meghan turned out looking perfect.
They look perfect, and she was dressed just on point. Yeah.
She looks amazing.
Yeah.
She was delightful. She was lovely.
Everybody was just so excited and pleased and happy. And I think people looked at it and went, wow, what a breath of fresh air.
Good addition to the royal family.
The Princess Diana cosplay outfit was just this weird coincidence. I guess.
I'm sure she's with
us.
I'm sure she's with us, jumping up and down somewhere else.
Sign 3. Perfectionism. You can spot a narcissist through their extremely high need for everything to be perfect. They believe they should be perfect, you should be perfect, events should happen exactly as expected, and life should play out precisely as they envision it. This is an excruciatingly impossible demand, which results in the narcissist feeling dissatisfied and miserable much of the time. The demand for perfection leads the narcissist to complain and be constantly dissatisfied. In episode 3, Meghan brings up for what feels like the 95th time that
There's no class in some person who goes sit like this, cross your legs like this, use this fork, don't do this, curtsy then, wear this kind of hat. Doesn't happen. So I needed to learn a lot, including the national anthem.
How did you learn it?
Oh, I Googled it. And I would sit there and I'd practice and I'd practice and I'd practice. It was baptism by fire.
okay, crazy cakes, you're worrying way too much about the wrong things. If the queen let this slide,
Pleasure to meet you, Your Majesty.
she thinks it's good enough for you to learn on the job. Ask one of the, I don't know, 11 advisors the Queen has put at your service. Literally anybody who was raised decently can tell you any of these things. Aren't you friends with Eugenie? Text her. She's not only a perfectionist, but she's too much of a proud narcissist to preface herself with, I'm sorry, can I ask you a silly question? Meghan just can't do it. And then inexplicably, honestly, I don't know, to give plausible deniability to the wolves that raised her, she throws the entire nation of the United States under the bus, saying we're all similarly lacking in a knowledge of basic polite comportment.
I guess you don't want to wave like an American, like,
This is where she lives. This is where she's from. This is where her children are going to grow up. What was she thinking? Sign 4. Great need for control. Manipulation and trying to grab control of everything is archetypical narcissist behavior. Since narcissists are continually disappointed with the imperfect way life unfolds, they want to do as much as possible to control it and mold it to their liking. They want and demand to be in control, and their sense of entitlement makes it seem logical to them that they should be in control of everything. Narcissists always have a storyline in mind about what each character in their interaction should be saying and doing. When you don't behave as expected, they become quite upset and unsettled. They don't know what to expect next because you're off script. They demand that you say and do exactly what they have in mind so they can reach their desired conclusion. You are a character in their internal play, not a real person with your own thoughts and feelings. And this is why breaking up with a narcissist can be particularly tricky. At the top of this episode, they describe their very structured, standard engagement interview in the most resentful, weird way.
In your engagement interview,
orchestrated reality show. Yeah, it was, rehearsed. But yes, we weren't, so my point is we weren't allowed to tell our story because they didn't want.
We've never been lost.
This shows their problem with control in 2 ways. First, by anybody else's definition, they were asked their story. How did you meet? Where did you propose? What do you think of each other's families? Show us the ring. This is your story, you two. And as for it being an orchestrated reality show, what am I watching right now? You were just wanting to make your engagement interview a long, drawn-out, virtue-signaling navel gaze with bad visual editing and droning piano music? Is that it? Your job was to give the British people answers to the standard questions anyone might have. I think their most offensive attempt at asserting control to date has to be this whole demanding an apology from King Charles and Prince William thing. Let me know in the comments below what you feel their most aggressive, obnoxious assertion of control has been. And last for today, sign 5, lack of responsibility. Lack of responsibility, including blaming and deflection, is a glaring sign of a narcissist. Although narcissists want to be in control, they never want to be responsible for the results. Unless, of course, everything goes exactly their way and their desired result occurs. When things don't go according to their plan, or they feel criticized or less than perfect, the narcissist places all the blame and responsibility on someone else to maintain their own facade of perfection. It has to be someone else's fault. Sometimes that blame is generalized. Everyone's out to get them. Most often, however, the narcissist blames the one person who is the most emotionally close, most attached, loyal, and loving in their life. The victims of their narcissistic abuse are the safest people to blame because they are least likely to leave or reject them. The blame game is Harry and Meghan's favorite game. His dad, her dad, the paparazzi, her sister, his brother, the British public, and that's the one I'd like to close with. This generalized blame on the British public for not loving them enough and not welcoming Meghan warmly enough, although I can't imagine anything warmer than a $32 million wedding, because 200 years ago, Britain participated in the slave trade?
Slavery wasn't just abolished, the slave owners were compensated. They were compensated enormously, £20 million for their human property.
One of the realities of life in Britain is that if you go into a palace or a stately home or anywhere that represents tradition, you are likely to be faced with racist imagery. There are murals on the wall or carvings on the ceiling that depict enslaved people in a way that glorifies the institution of slavery. You could say it's a small thing, it's a brooch. She probably didn't mean any harm by it. Magnify that thousands of times. It was just a painting, it was just a slave, it was just a plantation. These are the skeletons in the closet that frequently make an unwelcome appearance in daily life.
I find the way this was presented reductive and antagonistic. It would make people think that just 8 years ago, they were rubbing shoulders with the descendants of slave owners who secretly opened checks from the government every month and thought, gee, that Django was a good investment. No, it wasn't some big, nasty, secret, racist conspiracy. Slave owners were all paid out between 1835 and 1838. They were paid what was then considered market rate. It went up between 1835 and 1838. On the low end, people got what would today be $1,600 or so for a slave. On the high end, they got almost 2,000 of today's dollars per slave. The 20 million pounds referred to pay off the slave owners, what would be around $2 billion today, was raised by the British government by issuing 5 million pounds of government stock and 3 new series of securities, undated gilts, worth 15 million pounds to NM Rothschild Bank, which has never disclosed how much they distributed and how much they sub-underwrote. How does an undated gilt work? Gilts are bonds issued by the UK government that pay coupons, otherwise known as interest payments, twice per year, up to and including the date on which the amount borrowed is finally repaid. They are typically sold to large investment banks called gilt-edged market makers. Those market makers, in turn, sell the gilts on to retail investors. In 1957, the Slavery Abolition Act loan of 1835 was rolled over into the government's 4% consolidated loan program. Prior to that, it is believed to have paid at 2.5% semi-annually. This 4% consolidated loan was redeemed on February 1st, 2015, along with all remaining undated gilts. Undated gilts are now a thing of the past. And that's where the information they show comes from. Because of the way the financial markets have changed, it's very doubtful that anyone other than the Rothschild family, and you never know, perhaps the heads of some old families that bought some of the bonds sold directly by the government or bundled with some other stuff by the Rothschilds, was even aware that they owned any securities, even partially being paid due to this abolition loan. Is it fair? No. I wonder if anyone was canny enough to take the government payout and then spend it on the government gilts. Was it avoidable? Maybe. Are your neighbors secretly racist and conspiring against you? No. If you're curious about this topic or want to check my numbers, I will link in my description box to the Center for the Study of the Legacies of British Slavery, the Tax Justice Network, and the National African American Reparations Commission. Does this have anything to do with the state of racism in the present day UK? I don't think so. Does this have anything to do with Meghan Markle? Certainly not. I have to give it to them though. This is the blame game played on the grandest scale I've ever seen. Their blame game transcends space and time. Okay, put your favorite examples of these narcissistic traits down below in the comments, and please join me tomorrow for part 2. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.